People kept referring to plastic bags as this thing called a single-use disposable. Single-use disposable plastic. Think about it. Why would you make something that you're going to use for a few minutes out of a material that's basically going to last forever, and you're just going to throw it away? What's up with that? From things like yogurt containers, yogurt tubes, plastic forks, plastic spoons, don't even get me started on snackables, stackables, Lunchables, pizza on a cookie, to-go containers, all kinds of packaging created to be ripped off, then tossed off, sandwich bags, snack bags, candy wrappers, drinking straws, and of course, the big three. The three things that we Americans love to use and throw away the most: bags, bottles, and cups. So I just went into a very well-known coffee chain, which will remain nameless. Let's just say that it rhymes with Marbucks. And everybody's sitting around drinking coffees and lattes and chais and soy mochas, and everybody has a to-go cup. The to-go cup is for things to go, which coincidentally has a little lining on the inside made out of plastic. Did you know that? Your cardboard coffee cup has a lining made out of plastic.
Let's take a disposable single-use coffee cup, of which we use 300 million a day. You drink the coffee in 10, 20 minutes. If it's a styrofoam package, that package is going to be around longer than the Statue of David.
Now we're being convinced by marketing geniuses that we're supposed to use to-go cups in our own homes.
Make every morning a good morning.
To you and you and you.
Make it a Dixie Day.
Why should we make a cup or a piece of cutlery that you're going to be using for 5 minutes? Why should we make it out of a drop of oil that takes 70 million years to make? It's not making sense. In 1970, the United States was one of the largest exporters of oil. And here we are in 2008, and we are the largest importer of oil.
The sheer numbers of packaging that we're each individually responsible for are staggering. The average American contributes 800 pounds of packaging to the waste stream per person per year.
This is packaging rage, an affliction suffered daily by millions. Think about how ridiculous it's become. We package everything in plastic. Even things that are already perfectly packaged by nature come packaged in plastic. We package paper in plastic. We even package plastic in plastic.
I've done several images on single-use disposable plastics. One of them is an image of 60,000 plastic bags, which is the number of plastic bags, sacks, and wraps consumed in the United States every 5 seconds. Plastic water bottles. That to me is another one of the most insane things in our world right now. There are 1.2 billion people, almost 20% of the world's population, who lack access to safe drinking water on a daily basis. And at the same time as that is happening, we're spending untold amounts of money and resources shipping tap water from Fiji to Miami, from the Alps to Los Angeles. So us rich people can have a choice of which water to drink out of a disposable plastic bottle. It's insanity.
Bottled water has now surpassed sales of beer and milk, and analysts think that within 3 years it may surpass soda sales. We go through the equivalent of 17 million barrels of oil making the bottles that are used in the United States each year. Making those bottles generates 2.5 million tons of carbon dioxide. They had hundreds of millions of dollars to spend telling us to drink more water. They used celebrities and models and used athletes so that their product was linked with wellness. Utilities don't have millions of dollars hanging around in their budgets to spend on advertisements saying, drink from your sink, our water will make you more attractive to the opposite sex. And so the category grew and grew. And in 2008, we spent over $12 billion on bottled water in this country.
What is plastic made out of? Do you know?
Not entirely, no. Plastic is made out of ground up snail shells.
Plastic is made of plastic.
Plastic is made of yellow dye number 5. Oil.
Fossil fuels?
It turns out one of the biggest environmental consequences of making bottled water is making the plastic that makes up the bottle. If you were to fill any bottle about 25% of the way up with petroleum, that's the amount of oil required to make the bottle itself. But that's not the whole story. On top of it, we then have to transport it. If you're moving it a long way, it requires a lot more energy, maybe as much as another quarter. The energy content of the bottle is enormous, and it's an incredibly resource-intensive process.
They don't necessarily do it this way in the rest of the world. Enter Germany, home of the Bratwurst, Beethoven, BMW, and Oktoberfest, bands. They also take the recycling of plastics very seriously.
I basically collect all the plastic bottles and just carry them to the supermarket, and you put them into this machine and you get a receipt back, and this receipt, it's worth money. And this bottle is getting used a couple of times. You can see the little marks on it, which says how often this bottle is in this recycling circle. And this one is 22nd times. They're getting cleaned, refilled, relabeled, and coming back into the circle.
So this is all the plastic that I've collected this year so far.
This is Beth Terry. 2 years ago, she decided to stop using plastic altogether. And whatever plastic she can't avoid, she saves.
These are like used spaghetti sauce jars, and so I just take them with me to the store. So there's sugar that I can get in bulk and lentils. I stopped using plastic bags because I just hate them. But Michael is a real conservation, use what you have kind of person. So he washes out the plastic bags that we already have. This is our bathroom. The easiest thing in the bathroom is just not to use liquid soap, so we use bar soap.
Beth uses an antique all-metal razor. She swears by it.
You need 3 blades.
But
you know
you
why?
don't
Because
need
the first
3
blade pulls the hair out, and then the second blade pulls it out a little more and smacks it
You're
around.
a product
and then
of
the last
marketing.
shaves it off.
You're believing with that commercial. When I was growing up, we didn't have bottled water. I mean, people made jokes about Evian being naive spelled backwards. I think that for me, it was the idea of harming other living creatures and other people and harming the planet. That's what really woke me up. Making changes in your own life, it makes you feel like we've got to do so much more. I've got to talk to other people. I've got to talk to my representatives. I've got to start writing to companies. I've really got to up my game. But I think it starts on the individual level.
So here's a recap of the basics. The way I see it, bring your own bag, bring your own coffee cup, bring your own water bottle, and bring your own brain. Consider less packaging. Go single-use free for a single day. Start there. Become aware of your habits. It's not as easy as you think, but guess what? It makes you think.
Ice cream doesn't come in plastic.
More. We must have more.
So I recently found out that there is all this trash sitting in the middle of the ocean. And a lot of this trash is plastic. And my first thought was, well, all right, but I didn't do that. Where does that trash come from? Trash gets loose on the land, blows into a river, and the trash goes into the ocean. So that is our plastic out there. And there's a lot of it. How bad is the situation with plastic in the ocean?
I think it's bad because it's unnecessary. It doesn't have to be there. There are clear environmental consequences in terms of we know that over 260 species are affected by plastic debris through entanglement and ingestion. So just based on the statistics of production, how we've gone from 500,000 tons of plastic per year produced in the 1950s to over 260 million tons today. To put that into context, okay, the first decade of this century, by 2010, will have produced more plastic than we produced in the whole of the century that preceded. And most of that material is going to make throwaway items that are then ending up in landfill or the ocean.
You guys have been hanging out here on the beach. 80% of all marine debris actually starts from a land-based source. All drains do lead to the ocean. We dump things, they end up going down a storm drain or into a wetland, going down streams and rivers straight into the Atlantic or Pacific Ocean.
Camilo Beach has a very white sand look, and it's not really sand at all. It's mostly white plastic covering the beach, sometimes up to a foot thick of plastic pieces.
Wait a second, this is Hawaii? I've seen pictures of Hawaii. Hawaii is beautiful. This is not what a beach in Hawaii is supposed to look like.
There's just far too much of it in our ocean right now, and what is washing up on our beaches is a small indication of what's really out there.
Mainly what we find are fragments of plastic, stuff like this. And all this debris is coming from the North Pacific Subtropical Gyre, or the Great Pacific Garbage Patch.
There are actually 5 major gyres, swirling systems of currents in our oceans. 1 in the Indian Ocean, 2 in the Atlantic Ocean, and 2 in the Pacific Ocean. The gyre that has been studied the most is the North Pacific Subtropical Gyre, otherwise known as the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. Estimated to be anywhere from twice the size of Texas to the size of the entire United States. Debris of all kinds floats into this gyre, and there it stays, swirling. Now, the problem is that when this debris is made of plastic, it doesn't biodegrade. It photodegrades. That means that sunlight breaks it down into smaller and smaller pieces, which marine life can mistake for food. So what exactly does this garbage patch look like? We went to the Algalita Marine Research Foundation for some answers. They have spent over a decade studying plastic in the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. It's not a floating island of trash that can be cleaned up or scooped out. It's way worse than that. It's tons of little bits of plastic floating underwater, like a plastic soup.
This is our thickest sample yet. We've been finding more plastic by weight than plankton, and the ratio keeps going up. That's our concern.
Over the years, they have seen in their trawls through the patch plastic to plankton ratios that have gone from 6-to-1 to as high as 40-to-1. What that means is that in some parts of the ocean, there is now 40 times more plastic than food.
No bueno.
This is Midway Atoll, a tiny speck of land in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, where plastic is having a direct impact on the fate of the Laysan albatross.
Midway Atoll National Wildlife Refuge is home to the largest albatross colony in the world. These birds are fantastic flyers. They forage throughout the Pacific, but because they forage so far, they're really good indicators of the health of the Pacific and what's happening out there. In the 1950s, when people looked at dead albatross at Midway, they didn't see any plastic at all, and it wasn't until the 60s we started to see it at Midway and in the northwestern Hawaiian Islands. Every dead bird at Midway has plastic in them. So this is kind of the extreme, plastic everywhere and very little food. 19 caps of some sort, and then of the 19 there were about 14 bottle caps. The plastic they use for the top isn't recyclable right now, so maybe that's one of the reasons why you find so many plastic tops around.
The albatross that are surrounding us here today face numerous threats over the course of their life to successfully come back here and have chicks of their own. They've got to fly hundreds of miles to find food. They've got to survive for several years at sea. And the plastics in the ecosystem are just another hurdle in that path to come back here.
All the plastic that you see here was brought to the island by an adult albatross and fed to a chick. We can calculate how much plastic is brought to Midway each year by the adult albatross, and it comes out to be 5 tons of plastic. That's every year, 5 tons.
What's happening to Midway will soon be happening around the globe unless we change the way that we operate as a people. And he totally agrees. He thinks that was very well stated. I know.
It's not just albatross that are feeling the effects of plastic in our oceans. Over 260 marine species are being impacted by plastic, either through ingestion or entanglement. This 26-foot-long bride's whale was stranded on a beach in Australia and died. It was found that the whale's stomach was packed with over 19 square feet of plastic. In fact, it is estimated that plastic kills 100,000 marine animals each year.
Just about every big animal in the ocean is down 90%. Animals aren't going to be fine unless we figure out how to help them. But imagine if every morning your breakfast was a bowl of cereal and half the stuff in the bowl was little styrofoam balls and half of it was cereal. In some parts of the ocean, there's enough plastic out there that animals are eating a lot of it, and it's not good.
Sea turtles are fascinating animals that have been on our planet since the time of the dinosaurs. But now all sea turtle species in U.S. waters are listed as threatened or endangered under the Endangered Species Act.
They just eat what's out there, and not that long ago, everything that they would find was edible, or at least biodegradable.
If you can envision what a plastic bag would look like floating in the ocean, it looks like a jellyfish, and many sea turtle species eat jellyfish. When scientists are conducting necropsies, which are animal autopsies, they're finding that sea turtle stomachs are full of tiny little pieces of plastic. Some sea turtle species, like the Pacific leatherback, it's estimated that they could go extinct within the next couple of decades. We're really in a position where every dead sea turtle counts, and we need to do whatever we can to keep them alive and to recover healthy sea turtle populations.
Here's a question I've got. When did they start doing this on milk and juice? It's supposed to open like this. I don't get it.
There's really no cleaning it up. I've heard the scenario that to clean up the North Pacific Gyre, it would be akin to vacuuming the entire continental United States 3 times over. That's a monumental task. So we're stuck with that plastic in the ocean as it is.
We need help from industry and people involved in product and packaging design to help with material reduction. Reducing the quantities of plastic that we use for single-use, one-trip items, and then they're thrown away. And that's, to my mind, a third of all the plastics we make. That's what we're using them for. That's the area that really needs to be targeted if we want to help to reduce the problems of contamination of the marine environment.
Nature solves its problems. And if we're a problem, nature will solve us as a problem. To be an environmentalist, to be a conservationist, is really a question of self-preservation. We're really working to make sure that we survive. The Earth will survive, but if we don't learn to live in harmony with its ecosystem, then we will simply disappear.
People ask me, why should I care about the ocean? It seems so obvious. The ocean is the cornerstone of Earth's life support system. It shapes climate and weather. It holds most of life on Earth. 97% of Earth's water is there. It's the blue heart of the planet. We should take care of our heart. It's what makes life possible for us. We still have a really good chance to make things better than they are. They won't get better unless we take the action and inspire others to do the same thing. No one is without power. Everybody has the capacity to do something.
Even though we can't clean up what's already in our oceans, we can make sure that we do all we can to not add more to it.
Can I use my own container?
We can use less plastic. We can make sure our trash doesn't become litter. Remember, all rivers lead to the ocean, so even if you live in a landlocked state, your trash can end up here.
I'll take the free-range chicken. Well, I did start out making a movie about plastic bags. But like any journey, things developed and changed along the way. It became about so much more. I still think plastic is an incredible substance, but it's not supposed to end up in our oceans. I'm still an average guy, but even average people can make changes. You know, everybody keeps asking me, so what can I do? Well, here are some things we've come up with while making this film. Things you can do too. Starting today, right now. You can cut way, way back on single-use disposables. Don't drink bottled water. Choose products with less packaging. When you need something, buy it used. Think outside the bag. Bring your own container. Buy less stuff. Remember, recycling comes after reducing and reusing. And how about volunteering in your community to do litter cleanups? But most important, you can simplify your life. I keep coming back to how my grandparents lived. They didn't have all this plastic in their lives, but that didn't seem to make them any less happy. When it comes down to changing your life and living with less plastic, it's going to take some effort. And look at that, foam cups. Stay back. We just have to rethink how we do things. It all comes down to common sense. Well, there you have it. The end of one Odyssey, the beginning of another.